So welcome back to another Smackdown review with me, Mr. Parkin, on behalf of the British Fist. If you have any thoughts or comments on this week's edition of Smackdown, or indeed the happenings in the WWE this week, please put them in the comments section down below. And I must admit, this week's Smackdown, it was a pretty easy watch for me. And usually I would skip through a couple of matches and, not really pay attention to some segments and really fast forward until the end of the segment, which is the most important part of the segment in my opinion. But with this week's show, I found myself watching the show throughout and not really skipping really all that much, which does show you that WWE put on a pretty entertaining B show this week, in my opinion. So we officially opened SmackDown with Vicky Guerrero doing the talking for the Authority and saying that the Shield are going to be in another 11-on-3 tag match in the main event edition of this week's SmackDown. But that led us on to the great debate between Paul Heyman and Zeb Coulter. At least, if nothing more, this was a different feel segment than what you generally get with a mid-card feud. In mid-card feuds, generally, there's not really too much story associated to it. It's just match, guy on commentary, match, guy on commentary, interference, attack, whatever. But mainly thanks to the managers involved, i.e. Paul Heyman and Zeb Coulter, you can have segments like this which make these mid-card feuds feel a little bit differently. You can have Swagger and Cesaro do the work in the ring, and you can have Paul Heyman and Zeb Coulter talking on the mic and putting asses in seats, so to speak. I thought going into this, debate between Paul Heyman and Zeb Coulter, I thought this was going to be pretty damn epic, and, the mic work in here was actually pretty good. It just didn't live up to the epicness which I really thought it would be, but no big deal there. I still think the best bit was seeing Paul Heyman and Zeb Coulter getting in fisticuffs right at the end of the segment. It's almost like they have some sort of personal feud going on, isn't it? And this led us right onto a match between Cesaro and Jack Swagger. On Raw, you had Jack Swagger costing Cesaro his place in the final of the IC Championship Tournament, which they're going to be doing next week, which will feature Rob Van Dam versus Wade Barrett. Come on, Bad News Barrett. And this match here, it was a good match. Don't get me wrong, these two guys have chemistry and they've been working together for a while, so it's no real surprise there. And, I just thought this might have been a better moment for Cesaro right after winning the Andre the Giant Invitation Battle Royal. If they have him get a win on a pay-per-view, like Extreme Rules coming up, rather than having him get a win in the opening segment of SmackDown, have him continue his momentum and get a win in a pay-per-view match, at Extreme Rules. Let's try and catch up on this hype that's been going about Antonio Cesaro, or Cesaro now, after what he did at WrestleMania 30, the memorable moment that he had when he, body slammed Big Show over the top rope to win that Andre the Giant Battle Royal. I just think they kind of could have had this moment in Extreme Rules, and it's not like it's that far away and they have to really build much more to it. Could have just done this at Extreme Rules. So it looks like the tag team division is back to booking 101 now. Nothing really changes, does it? On Raw we had Ryback attack the champions. Ryback beat Jimmy Uso in a singles match on main event, and now Curtis Axel is beating Jey Uso on this week's edition of SmackDown. Like I said, it's back to tag team booking 101 with, not really too much story between the teams. But I will say this, at least WWE, unlike they do many times, have booked the heel tag team relatively strongly, and looks like this will be a tag team championship match for Extreme Rules. I've been hearing rumours through the grapevine, though, that it may be the pre-show match, which will be a real shame for the Usos, because it'll be 2 pay-per-views in a row, which they've been on the pre-show. And if you really want to showcase these guys as your tag team champions and future of the tag team division, the way to not do it is to have these guys consistently on the damn pre-show, if they go there. So time to talk about the Divas Division. Some of you may be surprised about this, but ever since Paige became the Divas Champion, I'm going to make a real effort to try and talk about the Divas Division now. I know they had this video package which highlighted Paige, and they had the interview with Michael Cole, and, Tamina winning the #1 contendership at main event last week, etc. But it looks like they're once again back to booking 101 for the Divas Division with just matches. I mean, here you had Tamina versus Natalya, which Tamina won. We've had really no interaction between Paige and Tamina, even though there could very easily be some story there, with Paige defeating AJ Lee, who Tamina was essentially associated with. You could have done some kind of story here, or added some kind of intrigue to this match, and instead they really haven't interacted yet, and it just feels like booking 101 again for the Divas, even though we have a new Divas champion in Paige. I saw a lot of people talking about and giving their opinions on the main event segment on Raw, which involved the Wyatt family and John Cena. And I would like to chime in with some of my opinions, inject some of my thoughts on this subject. You know what? This was a 3-on-1 handicap match, as voted by the WWE Universe, clearly showing that they're really not a fan of Cena, even though they are kind of playing it into the storyline, which I'll go into in a minute. But you'd think in a 3-on-1 handicap match, surely this would be a great chance to put over the Wyatt family clean and get some legit heat on the guys. But no, it's kind of stupid, isn't it, when it gets to the point in a 3-on-1 handicap match involving John Cena, where John Cena nearly pins Bray Wyatt 1, 2, 3 clean, other than the fact that you had Harper and Rowan in to cause a DQ. So you couldn't even put these guys over clean in a 3-on-1 handicap match. So how am I supposed to buy that Bray Wyatt is going to beat John Cena 1-on-1 in a steel cage match at Extreme Rules? You know, just the way WWE book their heels is fucking terrible sometimes. You couldn't even use that opportunity to have the Wyatt family get a straight-up victory over John Cena 3-on-1. That's awful in my opinion. It says a lot about the booking of John Cena. I did fit there, however, I did like this segment they did on Smackdown where Bray Wyatt delivers the message inside a steel cage, talking about how John Cena has lost the love of the crowd after the crowd chose to feed him to the wolves to them in a 3-on-1 handicap match. Another really great worded promo by Bray Wyatt. You know, the great thing about Bray Wyatt's promos is not just what he says, it's the fact that what he says makes you pay attention. You can't just skip a Bray Wyatt promo because it's not, you know, it's not necessarily your average promo. It's something a little bit different. It feels unique. It feels like you need to pay attention to what he's saying. And that is essentially what is going to make this character, hopefully, into a big star one day for the WWE. So moving from the Wyatt family onto another tag team, and that is the Rhodes Brothers. You have the Rhodes Brothers here lose to the Wyatt family immediately after the segment I've just talked about. And it looks like they're teasing splitting up Cody Rhodes and Goldust now. You know, I guess this tag team has gone so far now. You know, last year they were putting on some really good matches. They were the focal of the tag team division. They were a really big part of the Authority storyline at one point. But it's gotten to the point now where Cody Rhodes and Goldust are being used very sparingly, and it's probably about time for WWE to sort of say, you know, Goldust, we want you to put Cody Rhodes on your way out, and then we can hopefully go and start a Cody Rhodes push again, which is why I think, even though maybe this could have happened going into WrestleMania, which is why I think that breaking up this tag team is probably a better idea. I think Goldust has got to a point now where he's very over with the crowd, and, you know, he's performed very well, to the point where the crowd like him a little bit more than Cody Rhodes. So it's about time now that they turn Cody Rhodes heel, hopefully, as he is better as a heel, and put Cody Rhodes over. Whether or not it'll be Extreme Rules or not, I don't know. Hopefully they'll, you know, stretch this out maybe until a SummerSlam or something. But in my opinion, it's the right time to separate these two out and really start going with the Cody Rhodes character. Man, you've got to feel really bad for Daniel Bryan right now. I mean, he's just lived his dream at WrestleMania 30, main eventing the show and winning the WWE World Heavyweight Championship. He then got married to Brie Bella, which must have been another great moment for him, possibly topping his dream at WrestleMania 30. And then his dad dies. Man, this must be a real terrible time for Daniel Bryan. He's on such a high at the moment, and then something like that happens. And my condolences go out to Daniel Bryan and, of course, members of his family. But moving on to what happened on Raw in his segment with Kane, they had him open the show, you know, so he could go and, you know, grieve for his father, etc. They had him out there with Brie Bella as well, which hopefully would have helped him a little bit. And this opening segment was really there to establish the Monster Kane and to get Daniel Bryan out of there so he can take a week off and, you know, grieve for his father, etc., which I feel was exactly the right thing to do. As for this segment with Kane, they really went the full hill to tell us the Monster Kane was back. They had him tombstone Daniel Bryan once on the floor, once on the steps, and then once on the damn table, even though Stephanie McMahon was telling him not to. You know, even though they've established the Monster Kane here in that way over Daniel Bryan, it still doesn't really change my feelings all that much on the Daniel Bryan-Kane match. We've seen this match a couple of times now. I don't really feel this is a big match, you know, to really capture the magic that Daniel Bryan had at WrestleMania 30 by beating Triple H, Randy Orton, and Batista in one night. You know, is Daniel Bryan and Kane the match you really want to follow, a big WrestleMania 30 win like that? Even if it is the Monster Kane who could provide a somewhat formidable opponent to Daniel Bryan, not really in my opinion. But I think in the end, what really made this show really good in my opinion was how the Shield were featured. They were featured on this show like they were a big motherfucking deal. And they have to be seen as a big motherfucking deal because they're going to be facing one of the most dominant factions of all time, Evolution, at Extreme Rules in a 6-man tag match. You know, they were taking out people throughout the show that were going to be involved in the 11-on-3 tag match. You know, they took out Jack Swagger in the ring. They took out 3MB backstage, Brad Maddox backstage. They took out Fandango on the ramp, and they took out Curtis Axel backstage, even though we didn't actually see the attack. Funny they would attack Curtis Axel and not Ryback, isn't it? But there you go. But they went a long way on this edition of SmackDown to feature the Shield in different segments of the show, leading up to their main event match on this show, and made them feel like a big motherfucking deal, like they kind of should at this point in time. As we go on to the main event segment now, it was the Shield versus Bad News Barrett, Titus O'Neil, Ryback, Del Rio, and Damien Sandow. You know, I don't really know why the GM couldn't have just put some more bodies in there. You know, even if they were jobbers, I don't know why they had to do it 5-on-3 and why they couldn't just include, you know, some jobber superstars, you know, from main event or superstars or NXT or something. You know, I don't really know why they couldn't do that. At least Wade Barrett here got saved. You know, he pretty much got out of the ring unscathed. He didn't have to do a job for anything like that. You know, thank God for that after he got a real legit win over Sheamus to get to the finals of the Intercontinental Championship tournament, which they've done in the memory of Ultimate Warrior passing away a couple of weeks ago. So that's good for Wade Barrett. You know, I hope he's the person to challenge Big E Langston and potentially he wins the belt, even though, really, will it go anywhere for Wade Barrett? I don't really know. But, you know, this match really was here to establish the Shield as badasses that could kick, you know, many, many people's asses, which they're going to be able to do if they're going to face the Evolution faction, because you know what politicking is going to go on in that Evolution faction facing the Shield, just saying. Of course, Damien Sandow reached the pin in this match because he is the designated jobber for, well, pretty much everyone right now because he's in the doghouse. You know, then the Shield after the match decimate everyone else, you know, with Titus O'Neil, you know, Ryback, etc. Big guys as well. So they did a really good job here in making the Shield seem like big motherfucking deal, big badasses going into their match against Evolution and Extreme Rules, which I guess will make the Shield losing, you know, that much sweeter for Triple H, Batista, and Orton at Extreme Rules. That's how I feel that one's going to go. But anyway, you know, pretty well built up to an interesting main event segment for this week's edition of SmackDown, which, you know, featured and, you know, really highlighted 3 newer characters on the scene, you know, in the grand scheme of things, in Roman Reigns especially, Dean Ambrose and Seth Rollins, each in their own separate, unique ways. So like I said earlier on in this review, I thought this week's edition of SmackDown was a pretty easy watch and therefore was quite entertaining. And I think it's due to the fact that they condensed the number of feuds on this show, and they featured characters which I do enjoy watching and I'm very entertained by. This show was pretty much featured around the Shield, and I like the way they were featured here. You know, they had, you know, they had a couple of feuds in it. They didn't show too much filler. The Wyatt family was very well spotlighted here. You know, I felt Bray Wyatt's promo was once again brilliant, and even though I was a bit disappointed with the booking 101 for the Divas division and the tag team division right now, and, you know, even the possibility that Jack Swagger and Cesaro, you know, may not happen at Extreme Rules right now, and they've kind of done it on SmackDown. Even with those kind of things, I was still quite entertained by this show, even though I was a little bit disappointed with some aspects of it. So leave me your opinions on this week's edition of SmackDown in the comment section below, and I'll be here same time next week with an Extreme Rules preview as well, going into next week's SmackDown. Thank you very much for watching if you have, and goodbye.